You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello and welcome to a live episode of the Claret and Blue podcast. I'm Dan Robertson. I'm joined by Matt Kendrick, returning from his holiday, and James Rushton, joining me on his day off as well. We both get a text from Matt saying, breaking news, Jack Grealish called up to the England squad. Shall we do a quick podcast about it? So you can forget the episode that we did last week, outrage at the fact that he's not in the squad, because now he is in the squad, so happy days.
Yeah, completely disregard it.
I'm going to put a quick clip. This was me and Ash last week when the news was announced that Jack wasn't in the squad for some reason.
Total shock, to be fair to you. I don't know how all the fans are feeling about that.
I mean, there's a lot of comments in here that we usually put comments up on screen, but there's a lot of swear words that I can't put on screen. Gareth Southgate is XYZ is a lot of the comments, so I'm not going to put them up on screen, but the general consensus is like us, disbelief.
And just for continuity purposes, I've worn the same jacket because I've not really taken it off since buying it. So that looks good, doesn't it?
Extremely hygienic.
Nice hat, that is.
It is, yeah. It looks a bit odd, doesn't it? Like I said, I look a bit chubby, so I just want to wear my England cap. Before we go on to Jack Grealish, what are those? What are those? What's the new range of Aston Villa leisure wear like, gents?
Yeah, it's nice. Like I said, I've worn mine a few times at this point. It's nice material, nice rubber badge. I'm a bit disappointed that you've not got the new Kappa/Kazoo memo though in your Adidas tracksuit.
Yeah, sorry. Is it roomy enough for the big moved man?
Yeah, it's quite good. I've gone for a large, and there's a bit of wiggle room, so yeah, it's decent.
Yeah, I'm going for my old retro Adidas, I'm afraid, mate. I'll get on it. I'll get on it eventually. Anyway, Jack Grealish.
Yeah, so obviously, I feel like, I mean, you might as well, the scene out of Men in Black when they get the flashing thing to wipe people's memories. Everyone who's watched this, who watched the last episode when I sat here for 20 minutes raving at the fact that Grealish wasn't in the squad, forget everything I said about that. It's totally irrelevant now. But I feel like I've kind of covered this topic to a degree. He should have been in the squad, so he is in there now. I feel like he should have been in there regardless. He shouldn't need somebody to drop out of the squad for him to get into the squad in the first place. So what do you two think about it? First of all, the news last week, whenever it was, that he wasn't in the squad. How annoyed were you back then?
Well, I'd say, first of all, don't apologise for your rant last week. That might have had the casting vote. It might have been, Mr. Southgate might have listened in and watched in and thought, actually, that Rollinson, he might wear the same clothes every single day. He's clearly not seen much of Jack Grealish, has he, previously? If it's taken the withdrawals of, who we said Marcus Rashford and Harry Winks have dropped out, if it's taken the withdrawals to get him in.
I mean, he should have been in there over Winks anyway, shouldn't he? Let's be honest.
He should have been in there because he just offers something. He offers something different, and I think the challenge now. I mean, obviously, Gareth Southgate has been battered into submission by a lot of angry Villa fans with pitchforks gathering outside his mansion, or he's finally realised what the rest of the country and what the rest of. It's not just been Villa fans who have clamoured for this. A lot of independent pundits have also been scratching their heads, wondering why it's not been in there. What it does mean now is that Southgate. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean Jack Grealish is going to win an England cap, or even get involved at all. But it means that Southgate's got to think about the best way of playing Jack Grealish.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jack? Jack, you're not Jack. You're James.
It'd be nice to have Jack on for an exclusive comment about his caller, but unfortunately, he wasn't available for Facebook Live.
No, not today. He's got pressing issues, and that's tuning up with the England squad. I kind of came to terms with it after a bit. It was really annoying on the day because I was like glued to kind of TalkSport waiting for the announcement because you knew he was. It's like when Villa got promoted. I swear the first squad after our promotion, I just knew he was going to get called up, and he didn't. And then he didn't again and again and again. And I thought this one has got to be. There is absolutely no way Southgate can ignore him again, and he did. And I suppose he has his reasons. I saw conversations about. The problem England always had with fitting in so many individuals and so many brilliant players, and not these like quote unquote box tickers like Owen Hargreaves. But that's a problem of decades ago. That's a golden generation problem. We're so far gone past that now. I couldn't see why he wouldn't include Grealish as even a reserve option. I mean, I like Phil Foden. I like the players that were named in competition with him, like Rashford and Greenwood. But for me, Jack Grealish. I'm a Villa fan, and I felt really sad on the day that we learned that he wasn't called up, and I'm buzzing now for him. But time to get the job done. This is only off the job.
Yeah, I said when we did our episode with Ash that even though we don't, it doesn't affect us, does it, either way, whether he's in the squad or not. I think you and me talked about this, Matt, in the one that we did at my house, that it'd be nice to see him go on and progress with England, but ultimately it doesn't really matter, does it? So on the flip side of that, when he wasn't in the squad, it doesn't affect any of us, but you still sit there and you do feel annoyed and you feel kind of sad for him. So now on the flip side of that, you feel proud of him, you feel happy for him, even though, like I said, it doesn't affect any of us. We don't know him personally, but it's just nice to see one of our own in amongst the elite, isn't it?
He ain't got a bit more kids have been on his family trampoline.
that's a good point.
We've got some names. Can I throw a negative in?
Do you have to?
Well, I am, because
It's going to be a rubbish negative here. It's going to be a crap negative.
It's not going to be. It's going to be a very valid negative. It's going to have a really crap simile as part of it, but it's going to be a rubbish negative. It's not going to be a rubbish negative, right? Do we even want him playing for England?
What are you on about, man?
Because, and here's the rubbish simile. England squads have had more turned heads than an owl sanctuary in recent years, because we've had Gareth Barry, Ashley Young.
Is that just the consequence of good players, though? Is it really anything to do with getting called up to an England squad?
I don't know. You say that, but how soon did these players leave?
Are you saying that Jack Grealish has only been called up today because he's about to sign for Man United as well?
That probably would have been a conspiracy theory if Rashford was still there to do the head turn for him. But it's that, isn't it? I suppose with Jack Grealish, he probably couldn't have got any bigger profile than he is anyway. So, but I just think it is that worry, isn't it? That as soon as people, I think there's still some people, Gareth Southgate amongst them until half an hour ago, who didn't quite realise what a player Jack Grealish was. Even when, the first criticism was, that's okay, him doing it in the Championship when he's like a 15-year-old kid playing with a bunch of 8-year-olds. He's that much better than the rest of the Championship. Can he do it in the Premier League? Even when he's done it in the Premier League, I don't think people have quite grasped how good he is. But if he can start doing this, tearing it up on the international stage, all of a sudden you're thinking, oh God, the cat's out of the bag. People realise actually how good he is. So that's my concern. That I don't think his head will get turned, but I think the rest of the world will take proper notice of him. The other concern is Jack Grealish, for most of the last few seasons, has been out of action with injuries for, a while, a month or more. And I just think, his shoulders are already hurting from carrying Aston Villa for the last couple of seasons. Do we want to place him at risk?
Can you turn off those notifications, please?
Say it again. Is it me still?
It's pinging. It's really this is a podcast, mate. It's really
professional. You've got your standards.
No, that's all my
He's had 2 weeks off, and now he comes off buzzing on the podcast.
That's all my family and friends and fellow trampoliners telling me I'm speaking rubbish.
Well, someone who says you are speaking rubbish is Patrick Svensson, who says Barry was close to the England squad for ages. Not the same thing, really. So that's told you, mate. Okay,
we'll take Barry out of the way. Patrick, can we have the same argument for Stuart Jet Downing, for James Milner, for Ashley Young, and for all the other players who have departed northwest up the M6, probably within a year of getting England called up for Aston Villa?
I suppose he was holding on to those receipts, weren't he? Like he was ready for that. Matt was.
I'm telling you.
I suppose the argument for that, though, is that Jack Grealish has been linked with a move away regardless of his England call-up. He's been linked with an £80 million move to Man United regardless of that.
Listen, I'm delighted that Jack Grealish is going to be playing for England. And like you say, if he was going to move to one of the big powerhouse clubs, we've done this ad nauseum in previous podcasts, saying a lot of factors need to be met. Basically, the buying club needs to value Jack Grealish more than the selling club, which, I suppose if anything, Jack Grealish now getting an England call-up means Villa can add another 10 million onto his asking price anyway. So I'm only playing devil's advocate. I'm delighted that he's in the squad. We've been clamouring for it for so long, and it excites me to see what he can do for that England team.
But this is the question, I suppose. Do we think we'll even see him play? Will he even get any minutes, James?
We won't see him play much because the fans won't be allowed in, but we might see it. We might see it on the television. I think so now. I think I don't think he'll be starting, but I think we might see a 10 or 15 minute cameo from him. And I suppose, I know Jack. Did Jack like? How did Jack react last week? Did he like a tweet or something with somebody?
I think so.
About the decision. He's going to have to not that he lacks confidence anyway, but he's going to have to turn up and deliver the goods, isn't he? And Southgate knows him anyway. I know Southgate's been reluctant to pick him, but he's trained alongside and played for Southgate on under 21 duty, so he's going to know what he's getting. I think he'll be involved. I think he'll be involved for a short amount of time.
What about you, James?
Yeah, I think the same. I'll just go back to kind of the reason he weren't picked in the first place. It seems odd to not pick a player who can create chances for dribbling the ball, moving the ball forward, or passing it into like dangerous areas. And for me, I see a lot of kind of one or the other in the England squad. You see your players who love to carry the ball and love to pass it. You don't see maybe such a deadly mixture of both. And I don't know why Grealish probably wasn't in consideration in the first place. But look, joining as a replacement, I fail to see how that would throw him into any starting contention.
Yeah.
Unless he does us in training, as we know he can do. But then again, he's against all these literally world-class players in that England squad who have proven themselves in that squad for years in some instances under Southgate. So it's just the start of the job. But I feel like 10, 15 minutes here and there, maybe a second half in the second game. Who knows? I don't think it's going to be a lot of minutes at all, though, unfortunately.
Can I just apologise to Patrick for my slightly over the top reaction to his very valid point about it being a very different situation to Gareth Barry? Full disclosure, I'm hungry. I've only had a packet of French fries and some porridge for my breakfast. So, Patrick,
it's all food, mate.
I know exactly.
All right,
Patrick, it's not you, it's me, mate. I'm sorry about that.
Just to counter the point you've said there, James, about him competing with world-class players and him kind of having to dazzle in training to get any minutes. Jackie himself is a world-class player, isn't he? I said in the last episode that we did that not only should he be in that squad, I think, and this maybe is the hint of Claret and Blue bias, I think he's good enough to start for England over some of the midfield options that we've got in there anyway. So he's not going to go from not even being in the squad to start in that first game, obviously. Probably not even starting the second game, but he's definitely good enough to play for England and do well. So it shouldn't be a case of having to prove himself against other players in the squad because he's done that anyway in the Premier League. I think a counterpoint that we had in the last episode we kept saying about, does this mean that he has to play for a bigger club or a better club in the Premier League to get into the England squad? And somebody said, well, moving up to a different league or moving a different country, that's different because then you're competing against different players. But Jack Grealish is competing at the same level of English football in the Premier League against those 19 other teams, whether he plays for Man United or Villa, doesn't he? So that shouldn't matter anyway. So the fact that he's now in there, it's his time to shine. We hope he plays and does well, and other people start taking notice of what kind of player Jack Grealish is, and we can get away from all these comments that, he's overrated. All he does is dive. He spends all the time on the floor. No wonder he didn't get in the squad. That's just lazy, isn't it?
It's all kind of, I guess it's just the hysteria, isn't it? The international circus that you kind of forget exists when you're covering local stuff, right? But all you have to do is go back to that Graham Taylor documentary to see kind of the hysteria that the England team existing creates over players and managers. So I'm not saying that he must, suddenly have to step up a level and impress it because we know he's at the level. The problem is other people who are making the decisions probably don't know or have something against him because, look, he had to wait for a kind of an odd situation to even enter the squad as not even the first choice backup because they had Cody and Maitland-Niles. I know it's different positions, but you're looking at almost the last chance saloon immediately because the third choice replacement to come into the squad. So there's a lot working against him in the immediacy. But all it takes to turn that over is one good training session, I hope.
Yeah, and I actually think that playing or competing alongside better players in training will play into his hands. And this is not meant to be disrespectful to his teammates at Aston Villa because they are what they are, a kind of new evolving set of Premier League players. But, and I have to hark back several years, to be honest, when Villa were, it's probably the game that made Jack's name, isn't it? The semi-final against Liverpool at Wembley. But we've seen what he could do, and I'm not saying that people probably laugh now when I'm saying better players, but you've got Benteke and Cleverley and Delph, who back then were a good level of Premier League player. And, you know, Jack doesn't have to be the main man, is what I'm saying. You know, he has carried that team, but I think he can also play the role of team player. And I think it'd be interesting to see what he can do alongside players who, with respect to Aston Villa, are most of them at a higher level than where his teammates are operating now.
Matt, do you want to give a plug for our Grealish documentary podcast that we did, and I'll play a little clip of it. Just might as well capitalise on the news.
Yeah, well, we recorded this back in October, November time, thinking it was probably going to get called up then, but you know, a bit of foresight doesn't hurt. But we went to see Jack's former academy coach Brian Jones. We went to see his former head teacher. What's his surname? Mr. Chris
Bentley.
Mr. Chris Bentley. We just referred to him as Sir because we're respectful like that. And we put our hands up before we spoke to him. So he's his primary school teacher to get a flavour of the very young Jack. And also Lee Curtis, who's one of our colleagues who works for Nottinghamshire Live and the Nottingham Post, who managed to witness Jack kind of go out and the making of Jack at Notts County on loan as a teenage kid. So just told the backstory, didn't we? The origin story, I think we titled it, of Jack Grealish. That's well worth people checking out and catching up on. I think if you've got a spare 45 minutes, hour.
Yeah, something like that, 45 minutes. I'm going to play a quick minute clip here and then we'll come back after that and I'm going to quiz you on transfers, James. So get your transfer hat on.
With his performances and the goals he's scored and how he handles himself on the pitch, that, you know, he is a leader. And at 24, you have to say that's quite a remarkable thing, because you wouldn't expect a 24-year-old to captain a club as big as Aston Villa, but you know, he fully deserves it. You look at it and you think, well, I'm 24, I'm now captain of the club I support, so immediately you think, right, I've got to be on it every week. And clearly he is. You know, he's been absolutely terrific this year.
I'd like to think that he would be part of the next English World Cup team. You know, you need that bit of luck to thing, but I'd like to see him figuring as a regular in the England team, you know, reaching the latter stages of the World Cup. I see that as, it's not a given because, you know, anything can happen, but that would be my ambition for him, and also to hopefully stay at the club that he loves so much and where he can have continued success there, really.
His aim is to get in the England side and just prove to everyone that he is one of the best players in the country at this moment in time.
Stay in touch with him. Have you heard from him?
No, very disappointed. If he's watching this, I shall expect a call.
He's got his own personal telling off now. He's going
Listen, he owes me a fortune, tell him.
You'd be surprised to learn I prepared that clip last week, hoping he'd get in the squad then, and we didn't even get to use it, so I'm glad we finally got to get that clip out there. Brilliant. Especially made edit of his England comments. Okay, we'll move on very quickly, 5 or 10 minutes or so of any questions that people have got. The biggest question from Danny Barker: any signings? Question mark, question mark, question mark, shocked face emoji. James, have we signed anybody?
No, we haven't. Until that club statement drops, Villa have not. So it has to be both sides as well, because I'm sure there's been instances where a club statement dropped one side and the player hasn't chosen the move. But I think Brentford were waiting on 2 replacements to replace, obviously, Saïd Benrahma and Ollie Watkins. They've now got one in Eve Antoni. So it looks like Watkins is now free to complete the move of his choice. Whether that's Villa, we'll see. I'm sure it will emerge later this week. Of a departure from Brentford, we'll have to see, because I don't think you can say crystal clear he's cut out for Villa, because that has been said with a player in a similar fashion, Joe Bryan, who was crystal clear to Villa and ended up going down the motorway and joining Fulham. So we'll see. Plenty of clubs in for him. It was kind of rumoured that Villa would make offer him £70,000 a week in wages. We'll see where that lands. I don't know if there's any comparison with an offer Crystal Palace or Fulham may make, or even Brighton, but I feel like I can't see him not being a Villa player, if I could put that out there. I can't imagine him signing for another club. I feel like Villa have put it out there that they want him. We'll see. They've got the replacement in now. Saïd Benrahma, on the other hand, probably dying out a bit on the rumour mill. Brentford looking at Robin Hack to get that replacement in. So I don't think you'll see Benrahma move until they get that move in, and I don't think it will be Villa. The other move, Matty Cash from Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
The big one, yeah, that was a big one that kind of dropped, didn't it? Because he had the bid rejected, and suddenly it comes in at Villa preparing a new bid to kind of get closer to that 15 million. It's kind of an odd negotiation, isn't it? Right, give him 12, give him 10, get rejected, give him 12, it's accepted almost. We'll see. I think this week's going to be a big week for Villa, though.
What does that mean? Preparing a bid. You see these lines, don't you? All the say they're ready to approach. They're preparing this. What does that actually mean these days?
You mean stocking up the photocopy with toner and paper, I think, and the fax machine. Sorry.
Have conversations somewhere. Is there such thing as preparing a bid? And those are the buzzwords that you see in a transfer window.
I feel like journalistic speak, isn't it? Like dramatic U-turn and stuff like that.
I feel like that is peddling it.
It's like
I'll just tell him to write it.
He tells me what to put in it. I feel like it's probably a consequence of the information is more available than ever before on transfers. I think a lot of people who aren't even involved in the industry can dig things out and here. So I think preparing a bid is kind of a consequence of we're more involved and more knowledgeable of these processes than ever before, and we're getting more information than ever before, even though maybe the club isn't so keen on giving that information. People can find it out, people can find little things out. So I feel like preparing a bid is just one of these new stages that have emerged into kind of like the timeline of a transfer. So I guess it's better than not knowing, but it's also annoying.
Kieran asks, Matt, I've had that jacket when I was 14. Have you had it for about 20 years?
Kieran, I have had this jacket for about, what are we now? I reckon I've had it longer than that. I reckon I've had it about 25 years.
Wow.
And the fact that it still fits me shows what a finely tuned athlete I am. Or it shows what a fat young man I was. I'll let you decide.
I've seen old pictures of you. You weren't fat, were you? Maybe it was just baggy, because baggy was the fashion, wasn't it, back then? Baggy jackets.
Baggy trousers, mate, yeah. You're going to start me moving around the room like I'm singing to madness now. It's just, listen, what can I say? I'm a married man with 2 young children. I can't afford to buy these fancy new Cap Kazoo things. I have to dine out tomorrow. What?
It's like Banjo Kazooie, like some Nintendo 64 game dropping there.
You're just jealous, mate. You haven't got the fresh threads that me and James have got.
Fine. See, I didn't know I was going to come on here to be abused.
Fair enough. Kimmy L says, here's an exclusive. I've heard we've approached Tammy. We don't know where that comes from. Is there any truth in that, James? There
was
an exclusive there?
Pretty hefty update dropped by Tammy that he probably wouldn't consider a move away from Chelsea this year, which is fair enough. He's in a position to compete and keep that starting role. I mean, it's going to be harder this upcoming season than it was last season. But look, we all know he's a good player, so I feel like he deserves that shot at least. Again, I always thought it'd be probably unrealistic to sign Tammy Abraham this year, just because the price for him might be just so much of Villa's transfer budget. If you're looking again, I think we had a discussion, didn't we, in our transfer roundup, and we said 30 million even to get in the door, and then it's going to rise, and it only goes up from there, doesn't it? So I feel like a massive chunk this season. We'll see next season, but again, I'll just drop that one now.
One thing on transfers that I think it's worth people remembering. I'm not trying to whistle Villa's tune here, but although today is August the 31st, it's not deadline day. Just in case anybody was wondering, we got till October, so I know the season kicks off very soon, and you want to start the season with your best squad available. But equally, I'd like to think we've got a Villa regime now, with the CEO, with the new sporting director, with the new sporting director's assistant, with Dean Smith in charge, where signings, I don't think Villa should be making quick signings just to satisfy a clamour for fans who are growing impatient. We've seen what happens when you sign players at speed, and then you've got a lot, 2 or 3 years or 3 or 4 years of players seeing out contracts. It's more important for me that even if a lot of the business goes down to the wire, that Villa are being shrewd. They're not paying over the odds. They're not handing out contracts that are longer than players deserve. So as frustrating as it is, and it is frustrating because we know that Villa squad needs surgery, because we know that it's not good enough to consolidate comfortably as it currently is. I just think we've got to try and trust the transfer chiefs to know what they're doing, and then when they don't, we can batter them in November, December, January podcasts.
Well, this is a season like never before as well, right? This is the short turnaround, the pandemic going on, the impact on business, or the overhaul clubs have had. Look, you've got I believe the EFL deadline shuts after the Premier League deadline as well. So there's so much kind of that almost politics to consider in moves. So it's like a window. I think everyone's expecting it to be like a traditional window, and it's like it's not. It's so far removed from any expectations. And I think the evidence that we see of all the moves so far and everything going on, even all the links and rumours and what people want, is that we should apply that little bit of rational thinking to it to say this isn't normal, is it? We can't apply all those expectations we had because it isn't normal.
I think also if you consider how much goes into one transfer deal and you're trying to sign 4 or 5 different players at once in a condensed period of 2 or 3 weeks between from now until the end of the window, it does take a lot of effort, doesn't it? You can't just think, oh, we're looking at this striker, so why hasn't that progressed yet? What does that mean? I saw people on Twitter saying when we were linked with Cash over the weekend, like, oh, right back's not a priority. Are Villa not interested in a striker? So, well, yeah, of course. Just because you've signed a right back, and if a right back comes to the door first, doesn't mean anything, does it? Some transfers progress quicker than others. It might be easier for Villa and Nottingham Forest to negotiate a deal more so, for 12 million, more so than it is for Villa and Celtic to negotiate a 40 million deal for Edouard or Rashista or whoever it is. So just because someone comes through the door first doesn't mean that they were the number one target. It's just they just happened to get over the line first.
Can I put something in front of you? Can you imagine if your parents, what would your parents be like if you treated the receiving of Christmas presents the way that football fans on social media receive transfers? It would be like, no sooner had you unwrapped your Millennium Falcon or you Mr. T doll, I'm going back a bit, or next, all right, got that through the door, next, what's next? And you just think, Jesus Christ, I know we haven't got any yet. No, I don't think we're waiting for the tree to be decorated and the presents to be put beneath. It's just this kind of bang, bang, bang philosophy. You're thinking, well, football clubs don't operate in the way that you can operate on Football Manager, so just have trust. Just have trust.
Also, just all the rumours and stuff. I saw a comment from somebody saying that occasionally people, I'm talking about normal people, things that you see on Twitter and Facebook pop up. I've heard this. So and so works at the club shop, and they've told me this. Occasionally, yes, someone will have a bit of information that will be correct because they are a friend of the family or whatever it is, or they work in a certain industry where they get that little snippet of information. But these people kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like if someone leads with a rumour.
I know every transfer deal that Villa are doing, and they're this move's fallen apart. I've seen this happen. I've seen that. No one out there, apart from the people that are involved with Aston Villa, know everything that Villa are doing. So people just need to calm down on social media a little bit. Occasionally, yes, someone will call something and it'd be right, but following people who profess to say, yes, I know everything that's going on is ridiculous in this day and age now.
Yeah, I think it's a big red flag for me when you're looking through all the rubbish you have to kind of look through, and all the information, all the massive information you have to digest about transfers. It's a big red flag to me if someone who kind of isn't in the industry claims to have seen image rights, wage package, contract length, and a transfer fee, because those are unrelated bits of information that are very sensitive. And even you think about the amount of information that has ever been leaked about deals. It's probably one big book that exists called Football Leaks, which I'm reading now, and even then, that's only got a few contracts in. So if you're talking about the Jack Grealish thing, you're talking about, and I don't dismiss anyone who has information or has found or heard something, because I've got every right to share that. I think we just have to be sensible with what we're presented, and if you're presented with all this sensitive information that someone's told him not to tell, and that's been willy-nilly shared everywhere, that's a massive red flag for me. If all those sensitive details are not on a report or someone from a trusted place.
I can just see someone someone dressed all in black with a black Rolex sweater, climbing through the roof space of Bodymore Heath, just kind of sneaking in and looking in the shredder and stuff like that, and gluing it all back together and stuff like that. The level of detail that somebody in the knows that purport to have is remarkable. But it's a tension thing, isn't it? People like to be in the know, and that versus the absolute desperate clamour for information makes for a dangerous recipe, doesn't it, at times?
Yeah. It's, I think you tweeted over the weekend, James, about it being in the know culture, I think is probably the word. And I just said, just stop looking at your phone. Just don't. You can see all these things pop up on Twitter and Facebook. That doesn't mean you've got to ingest it all and take it all in.
It's not the best advice for brand, that if people could occasionally look at their phones, please.
If you could just stay glued to our podcast and ignore everything else, that'd be wonderful. But I think what we've got to remember is Twitter, the way it works, and it's just a constant stream of information beamed at you that like a critical kind of thought. Like you used to have teletext, right, and you used to be presented with a crap rumor. You'd have to go and deal with that. Like you would have no way of like dismissing it or thinking. You'd have to stew with a crap rumor for days. Like that's it. That's all you had. You couldn't go anywhere, or you have to speak to your mates about it. I think Twitter has made it a lot easier for good information to be shared. It's also made it a lot easier for good information to be kind of ripped apart or torn apart or not even considered in a good way. It's instant and it's over. It's like a microwave meal, isn't it? There's no sustenance from it. There's no nutrition. It's just information.
You know what I'd do? I was one of those in the nose. I'd set a premium rate club call phone line. 800, and people would have to pay £3 a time to find out that Matty Cash was spotted in a petrol station on the outskirts of Tamworth.
Maybe we should start doing that with the podcast.
Say again.
Maybe we should start people to tune into the podcast, and we can just make stuff up.
It's bad enough, mate, getting them in for free. It's an hard enough job for people to have to put up with this for free, to be honest. So.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I think that's enough for today, James. Is there anything else to report on? You're always one. I mean, I've done.
He's got the week off.
He's got the week off?
Yeah.
Oh, my word. I thought it was just one day.
Yeah, it's a Emiliano Martinez deal that kind of jumped up, and then he performed well. And it's like Maitland-Niles and Wolves. They had a player in the sights. There's a deal being lined up, and he does well in the Community Shield. Then there's a new contract offer coming in. It's just the churn. We're going to progress steadily through the season, through the first part of the season into this October transfer window. And it's going to be mayhem until then. But I think I don't want to put my neck on the line, but I feel like there could be a signing this week. I feel like this has got to be, after all the Watkins stuff that's come out.
You heard it here first. There could be a signing this week or next week.
Could.
After.
There's a lot of back covering there.
It might not be Aston Villa, but
yeah.
Someone somewhere will sign a player. That is confirmed. Yeah. I think we'll call it a day there. I've been watching the Tottenham Hotspur All or Nothing documentary. I've watched one episode. It's very good. I want to go back to it because it is my day off. But here I am, Matt, working for you on my day off. So can I go now? Is that enough?
Yeah, put in an email, mate. We'll give you the time back. We'll give you time back on deadline day when there'll be nothing happening.
Do you remember the January deadline day when we did this massive work day? I don't think you were with us then, James, but we did this massive day.
I was with you. I was covering Stoke.
The glamour.
Great day. Great day. Hopefully this year's one will be more exciting. But yes, let's get out of here. Thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. We can't wait to see Jack Grealish in an England shirt banging in goals, because that'll definitely happen. And hopefully, like James has exclusively revealed, we'll all be seeing someone holding up the Villa shirt soon at the end of the week.
Don't say that, bro. My name's going to be mud. It's already mud.
I just like encouraging it. Thanks, James, for joining me. Also on your day off. Matt, thanks for joining us. Not on your day off, but thanks anyway. And we'll be back again when something happens.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, up the Villa.